Missy, tell me, we did an interview this morning and things looked good. I can say, in quotes, good. Things have drastically changed. At approximately 2:40, numerous people were evicted from the bus terminal in Coburg. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so this morning when we first talked, we were coming off of just over 48 or about 48 hours of a really collaborative grassroots community care collaboration between concerned citizens and the town of Coburg in mobilizing an emergency warming room for folks who are experiencing homelessness and who would have otherwise had to have been out in the blizzard that we experienced on Saturday night and throughout Sunday and last night, had it not been for the ability to keep that bus shelter on Albert Street open and allow folks to continue to shelter there. Now we find ourselves in this place, maybe 8 hours later from when we first talked. The town staff decided that they had to close the bus shelter at 8 p.m. tonight, as per usual. People were evicted, even though folks have been sheltering there during the day for weeks now. As soon as the cold weather hit, people have been sheltering there a lot. And we don't have an alternative option or any other support or outreach happening from the town or from the county to meet the need that we know exists because we just finished meeting it for 2 nights in a row.
When we left, you were praising the town, and now not so much.
Yeah, now not so much for a few reasons. I understand that there is a tension between what is the lower tier municipality's responsibility and what is the upper tier municipality's responsibility, being Northumberland County. Where I don't care about who is responsible for things is when folks are left out in the cold without access to washrooms and suffer the indignity of being forced to sleep on wet, dirty floors with no furniture to sit on even. And that we're supposed to be thankful and grateful for that. I was thankful and grateful that we were able to offer that minimum amount of dignity and care over 2 nights. This is unacceptable, in my opinion. It prioritizes the safety and the security of the corporation of the town of Coburg, and at the expense of the folks who are the most marginalized in this community and who have to sleep in the cold tonight. And I just want to remind everybody that, there are no public bathrooms available 24 hours in the downtown. If people have to seek shelter in a bank vestibule or under a stairwell, which we know that that's a frequent way that people do shelter themselves out of the cold, they don't have access to washrooms for easily 12 hours.
And again, I spoke to you off camera about this. Devil's advocate, and again, the county has said the transition house does have spaces, but not everybody fits into that need, I guess, if I can say.
Yeah, so this is a really important piece of clarity that people need to understand. When the county says there is room at Transition House Emergency Shelter, when they say we have beds available, what they don't add is that the vast majority of the folks who were accessing shelter at the emergency warming room the past 2 nights, the vast majority of folks who are sheltering in bank vestibules and under stairwells, they aren't eligible to access those beds. So if the beds are empty, it's because people are not allowed to access them. And that can be for a variety of reasons. And maybe it's not that they're not allowed to access them. For the most, they're not allowed because they're maybe on a service restriction. And so that's keeping them out of the bed. But there are other reasons, like people need choices about where they lay their head at night. The rooms at Transition House are conjugal settings. You don't get a choice about who you share a room with. So you very well could be finding yourself sharing a room with someone who's caused you harm. Or, maybe you're a part of a couple and you can't share a room if you're a couple at Transition House. So, and maybe there's less beds for women as there are for men. So maybe only one of those partners can get a bed at Transition House. Is that couple going to choose to leave is one partner going to choose to leave their other partner out in the cold and go inside? Rarely they do. And so those are some of just a few of the reasons why when people say, oh, there's room at the shelter, that this is when a room is not just, this is not a room. It's when it's not actually as accessible as everyone is telling us that it is. And I think that there needs to be some real transparency around that. And then the last piece that I just really want to stress for everyone is that, the town of Coburg put this statement out about half an hour ago, their statement on this collaboration on this emergency warming room. And in it, they talk about how this need came about for folks who, basically were caught off guard and couldn't find themselves some other shelter. That is blaming folks who are homeless. That is responsibilizing the most marginalized members of our community. And also, I want to remind everyone that all this summer we had this conversation about the ways in which people who are experiencing homelessness were trying to solve their own sheltering solutions. And what happened is that bylaw went and ticketed them, told them to move along, tore down their campsites, and threw out their possessions. So even when people do try to solve their own homelessness experience, they're met with constant marginalization, constant oppression, constant systemic violence. And that's what I really just want everyone to keep in mind when they're reading these statements and thinking about how this process has happened.
With last question, with the bus terminal, and again, could it have been like, could there be, and I don't know this, but I mean, could there be health related issues why they can't stay there? Could there be fire related issues? Now I know there's been volunteers there since day one or since the first hour, sort of supervising. So I don't know whether that would take away some of that responsibility or not, but I mean, just if you could answer.
Yeah, so that's a really important point, Pete. And I was one of the people that said this morning in my summary email to leadership at the town that we met this emergency need with the resources and the people and the shelter that we had at hand on Saturday and then also Sunday night, because still no alternatives were offered. But what I said this morning is that bus shelter is not an acceptable solution for sheltering folks. We had 25 unique individuals come through that space last night, 9 of whom stayed the entire night. 9 people, and plus more coming and going, who were in one small room, no furniture, no chair to sit on, no cot, no bench. These are people lying on the floor. We had seniors lying on the floor and the draft from the door coming as it was opened and shut. Absolutely. This was a health and safety risk. It met an emergency need in the moment. It shouldn't have happened for 2 nights. We did it for 1 night. We should have come up with a better solution the second night, but that didn't come forward. So the volunteers mobilized again to do it all over again. And now here we are. This is where I also am disappointed in the town and the county. It's not that they closed the bus shelter from sheltering options. It's that they didn't provide a suitable alternative. They just took it away. And that's what I can't accept.